The sound of a baby's quiet whimper echoed through the near-empty supermarket aisle as the hum of the freezers filled the silence. A man in a worn flannel shirt and faded jeans stood under the harsh fluorescent light, clutching a small basket. Inside were only the bare essentials: baby formula, a loaf of bread, and a small pack of diapers. His name was Evan Hartley, a 33-year-old single father trying to stretch the last few dollars in his wallet to feed his infant daughter, Sophie. His face carried that tired, but determined look of someone who had seen too many hard days yet refused to give up. A few steps away, unseen behind the shelves, stood Clara Beaumont, a woman in her late 30s with a tailored beige coat and glossy black hair tied neatly in a bun. To anyone else, she looked like a sophisticated professional grabbing a few groceries on her way home. But beneath that calm exterior, Clara was one of the most successful CEOs in the city, heading a global wellness brand. She had come to this small suburban store to clear her head after a long, draining day of corporate meetings, unaware that what she was about to witness would change her life. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one good heart to change another person's destiny, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps us spread more stories that remind the world that goodness still exists. When Evan reached the checkout counter, the cashier rang up his items. He pulled out a few crumpled bills, but the total blinked higher than expected. His heart sank. The formula alone had eaten through almost all of what he had. He swallowed hard, glancing back at baby Sophie bundled in the cart seat, her tiny face hidden beneath a pink knit cap. The cashier gave him a sympathetic look, but rules were rules. Something had to go. Evan took a slow breath and gently pushed the pack of diapers aside. "I'll get these next week," he murmured, trying to smile. Behind him, Clara had been watching quietly, holding a basket of expensive organic produce. She noticed the tremor in his hands, the way his shoulders slumped, not with shame, but exhaustion. There was something deeply human about it. Without overthinking, she stepped forward and handed a $20 bill to the cashier. "Add it to his total," she said softly. Evan turned, startled. "Oh no, please. You don't have to." "It's all right," Clara interrupted with a warm but firm tone. "No one should have to choose between food and diapers." He looked down, his eyes glistening as he tried to process the gesture. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice breaking slightly. "Really, thank you. I'll pay you back somehow." She smiled faintly. "Just pay it forward someday." As she left the store, Clara couldn't explain why that small moment stirred something in her. Maybe it was the humility in his eyes, the way he thanked her as if she'd just saved his world. She didn't know his name, but she couldn't shake his image. That man, who was struggling yet still standing tall, reminded her of someone she used to be before wealth, meetings, and boardrooms took over her life. Evan, meanwhile, drove home in his beat-up sedan to a small one-bedroom apartment that smelled faintly of baby lotion and coffee. Sophie cooed softly as he laid her down in the crib made from second-hand wood he'd refinished himself. He sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of unpaid bills. It wasn't supposed to be like this. 2 years ago, he had a stable job as a construction foreman. But after an injury and his wife walking out, leaving their newborn behind, everything had fallen apart. Still, he refused to complain. Sophie's tiny laugh made every struggle worth it. The next morning, Clara walked into her company's downtown headquarters, glass walls glinting under the daylight. Her team greeted her with polite smiles, but she barely noticed. Her mind kept returning to that man at the store. Why did it haunt her so much? Perhaps it was guilt. For all her success, she couldn't remember the last time she'd done something purely kind. Not for business optics, not for publicity, just because someone needed help. That afternoon, as she reviewed a proposal for a community food initiative, she made a decision. "Find me stories," she told her assistant, "of real people who are trying but struggling, parents, veterans, caregivers, people who don't need charity, just a chance." A week later, fate played its quiet game again. Clara visited one of her company's partner sites, an old community center that was being renovated as part of her new outreach program. When she stepped onto the dusty construction floor, her heart nearly stopped. There he was, Evan, dressed in paint-splattered overalls, carrying a bucket of plaster, his brow glistening under the morning sun. He noticed her too, and for a moment both froze. Then recognition softened their faces. "You," he said quietly, almost smiling. You were at the store. The Clara nodded. And you're the man who tried to return diapers. They both laughed, the tension breaking. She extended her hand. Clara Beaumont, Evan Hartley. He replied, shaking it gently. Wes, we meet again. She didn't reveal who she truly was, not yet. Instead, she watched him work, noticed how he treated everyone with respect, even when others didn't notice him. During lunch, she joined him outside under the sun. He shared pieces of his story, his wife leaving, his injury, the long nights when Sophie wouldn't stop crying, but he kept singing anyway. Clara listened in silence, her heart twisting with empathy. Over the next few weeks, their paths kept crossing. Clara would stop by with coffee or help hand out sandwiches to the workers. She found herself looking forward to those small, ordinary moments. The way Evan always smiled despite the struggle, how his eyes lit up when he talked about Sophie. There was no pretense in him, no bitterness, just quiet strength. But the truth had to come out eventually. One afternoon, Evan overheard another worker mentioning the boss lady, saying she owned half the city and had her name on the donation plaques. When he looked up and saw Clara standing beside them, his stomach sank. You, he said, stunned. You're the CEO. She nodded slowly, guilt washing over her face. I didn't mean to hide it. I just didn't want things to change between us. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I don't know what to say. You've been helping rebuild this place, eating lunch with us like one of us. Because I am one of you? She said softly. Money doesn't erase what it means to care. They stood in silence for a long moment, the hum of the construction site fading around them. Then, in an impulsive moment of courage, Clara said what had been growing in her heart for weeks. Evan, I want to help you, not out of pity, but because the world needs men like you to rise again. I'm starting a community project to hire skilled workers who've fallen through the cracks. You'd be perfect to lead it. He looked down, eyes moist. I don't deserve that. Yes, she whispered. You do. In the months that followed, Evan became the project's field coordinator. His work helped rebuild schools, parks, and shelters across the city. Every evening, he returned home to Sophie, her laughter echoing through the apartment. He began to feel alive again, like life had finally given him another chance. And through it all, Clara was there, sometimes as his boss, sometimes as a quiet friend who'd drop by with homemade soup and stay to help rock Sophie to sleep. One sunny afternoon, during the opening ceremony of a newly restored community park, Clara stood before the crowd to speak. She began her speech with a simple story about a man who paid for groceries he could barely afford and the kindness that rippled from that small act. As she spoke, her voice trembled slightly, and she looked directly at Evan in the front row. That man reminded me that true wealth has nothing to do with what's in our bank accounts, she said. It's about what's in our hearts and how we choose to share it. When the applause faded, Evan walked up to her quietly. He didn't say anything at first, just looked into her eyes with a depth of gratitude words couldn't reach. Finally, he said, You gave me more than a job, Clara. You gave me hope again. She smiled gently. You gave it to yourself. I just helped you see it. A few feet away, baby Sophie clapped her tiny hands, giggling in her stroller. The crowd smiled, some wiping away tears. Clara knelt down beside Sophie, brushing a curl from her forehead. You've got a good dad, she whispered. Evan's voice softened. And she's got a guardian angel who showed up when we least expected it. The golden sunlight bathed them as laughter and applause rose around. In that moment, it wasn't about CEO titles, past struggles, or lost years. It was simply about two souls who found each other through an act of kindness, and how sometimes fate works quietly, one grocery line at a time. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Let's remind the world that small acts of compassion can change lives in the most unexpected ways. Special request. Comment. Kindness never goes unseen. Below if you believe that one good heart can make all the difference. And remember, sometimes, the richest people in the world are those who give even when they have little, and the most beautiful moments begin with a simple act of kindness.